Hi, my name is Lowell Joseph Gallen, and I would like to welcome our viewers and listeners worldwide and those participating live in this Zoom broadcast to this evening's program in our Root and Branch Association English Language Conference and Lecture Series, which we've been holding here in Jerusalem, Israel, for 25 years, 1/4 century, since January 1995. Our lectures are usually held at the OU Israel Center on Keren Hayesod Street, and we are certainly there in spirit. Under the circumstances, we're not there physically. We're all in our homes or bunkers or schools or yeshivot or wherever we may be. So today is Monday, August 3rd, 2020. Because it is the evening, it is already the 14th of Av, 5780. This week, as some of our viewers and listeners and participants know, is Parshat Akev. We've already begun the Shabbats of consolation. Parshat Nachamu. Shabbat Nachamu was last Shabbat as we approach Rosh Hashanah for 5781, the 6th year of our current 7-year Shemitah year, sabbatical year cycle in 8 weeks at the end of September. We are very happy to have as our speaker this evening Rabbi Zevi Trenk. And Rabbi Trenk is going to speak on the Golem and other creations by mystics. Rabbi Trenk will be taking questions and comments during his talk. Now I'd like to hand the program over to Dr. Les Glassman, our program chair.
Oh, thank you so much. And Rabbi Zevi Trenk, it's good to have you this evening. It really is. And the topic is intriguing. I was once in Prague, and from a very early age, from Kita Aleph, we heard about the Golem. And even to this very day, there's those that say it really happened, those that say it didn't happen. So it would be nice to hear from an authority what the true story is about the Golem. It's a fascinating, it's a legend, and it's a big squid for us to have you this evening to talk about not only the Golem but other creations by mystics. Anyway, I can't wait. I'm very excited to hear what you have to say. So without further ado, I want to hand over to Rabbi Zevi Trenk.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, for inviting me. It's a big honor. I apologize I won't be able to be an authority to hand over information, but I could just say over some research I did. And I think you'll be able to make your own decisions. With the research, I think it's pretty clear, what was real, what was not real. So we'll see. First of all, what a golem is, just very simply, we'll talk about it more, but what a golem basically is, it's sort of like a Frankenstein. Like it's some type of human being in some form that's created. And the word golem is a more modern word. It actually was not the word that was actually used. Maybe it's a couple hundred years old. And the first thing I wanted to discuss is how do you make a golem? How does that happen? How does it work? So do you need like certain, you need to know what materials to put together? Do you need to say something, or do you need lightning? Like how does the whole thing work? And the answer is, in short, that I have no idea. So I really didn't have enough time to prepare for this year. So I apologize for that. But thank you for coming, and have a good night. But I could tell you a little bit about it. It's hard on Zoom to make a joke. You can't tell exactly what the reactions are. I appreciate if anybody's laughing to unmute for a minute and then laugh and then put the mute back on and say, no, I get some feedback. So basically, I don't know how to make a golem, but I could tell you a little information. I could tell you where where you need to look. And the place you need to look is the sefer called Sefer Yetzirah, or the Book of Creation, which that book was written by none other than Avram Avinu, and that book teaches you how to create a human being, or some sort of human being. Now I have some good news and some not such good news. The good news is that I actually have with me a Sefer Yetzirah. This is the Sefer, and with the Sefer, that's how.
Can you see what it looks like on the inside?
Yeah, but just for a second, because I don't want you to be able to see too much. But basically, this is the sefer that you need to study to be able to create something like this. The bad news is that it's really worthless in regards to making a golem. In regards to me making a golem, it's worthless because we can't really a sefer this deep and this mystical is not something that we could understand, and not something that we could even on simple levels. There's not much that we can get out of it. There's definitely things in there which are very interesting, and we can understand certain things. He talks about the zodiac, and actually parallels almost identically to what we have nowadays. The different months. Like I was born in Adar, which is Pisces, and Adar is Dagim, and that's which is fish. It's very parallel actually to what we have today. So he goes through different months, what they mean. Each month has its own letter. Each body part is parallel to something else, and it's filled of different names of Hashem. Like we call Hashem in different names. Like when we're davening, we call Hashem D'Racham. Sometimes we say Elokim or Adoshem. We have a lot of different names for Hashem. So there's a lot of different shemos that are used to call Hashem. And somehow through combining these names of God, somehow you're able to create a human being. But with all mystical svarim, and especially something that goes back so far, that goes back 4,000 years to the time of Avram Avinu, first of all, you have to be on the level to be able to actually understand it and use it, meaning that a person has to perfect himself and has to be on a incredibly high level, something that probably doesn't even exist nowadays. And the second problem is that to understand such a book, anything mystical is something that's way beyond us. It's not that we can't open a Rizal or any of these mystical books and understand what's going on. And often we would actually get the opposite of the intention of the author. And the Rabbi Rucham Levovitz was the great mashgiach in the Mir Yeshiva in Lithuania. So he gives a very good explanation of how to look at mysticism in general. Like I feel this is a very important rule to understand, that Rabbi Rucham says that in yeshiva we learn Gemara all day. We're learning the Talmud all day and night, and it's something that we spend on one page. We could spend weeks or months, and people who are advanced learners who spend decades studying the Talmud, they're still intensely working just to understand, just to get clarity on a page of the Talmud. And Rabbi Rucham says the Talmud was written with a purpose to explain to you what you need to do. It's trying to explain to you, the whole Talmud is explaining to you what the rules are of life and what the mitzvahs are. And that's what they wanted. That's when they wrote the Talmud, they wanted to teach you what to do. The mystical Sfarim is actually the opposite. They wrote it to hide. They wrote in a way to hide what their real intentions are, because they didn't want these books getting out to anyone and to the layman and to the public. They did it with the intention to hide what they really meant. And therefore you could only understand it with, first of all, with a teacher, and second of all, with the only somebody who's been trained for decades in having clarity of mind and understanding the way the Torah talks, the way Torah works. And that's the Rebbe says that by Talmud, which is coming to teach you straight out what to do, and you see how hard it is, we can imagine mystical books, which were designed to hide what their real intentions are, how much harder it is to actually understand them. So it's just important to know, like it's an important rule, like when we talk about mysticism or Kabbalah, that a lot of times Hollywood or the entertainment industry takes advantage of these types of ideas. And when anybody who's not a sage of great caliber discussing these types of issues, it's something that we have to be very careful from, to actually be running the other way, because there's no way that they actually have a proper understanding of these books. So anyways,
do you mean to say that there's no real Kabbalists today? You spoke earlier about the level of purity that is required, and you don't know if it exists today. But we seem to have real Kabbalists.
Okay, I decided no questions till the end. I'm sorry. That's a good question. So we do have real Kabbalists nowadays, but they're not on the level of even the Kabbalists who lived 100 years ago, and for sure not a few hundred years ago. There are Kabbalists who could understand these types of books much better than us, but even them themselves, they admit they can only understand very, very little, and that they're not involved with practical, I don't know what to call it, sort of like, practical Kabbalah, in the sense of, doing miracles or things like that. The Kabbalists that I have seen, what they say or what they write is that that's not something that we could even do nowadays, and they're only understanding really like a drop of the ocean of what people used to understand from these same books.
Rob, can I just ask you, are you talking about the Zohar as well? Does that fit into this category as well?
That's a good question. I specifically didn't say the Zohar because I didn't have complete clarity on it myself. It looks like the Zohar, it applies to the Zohar too. Just some people study the Zohar and it's studied more than a lot of other esoteric Sfarim, but it seems from everything that I've seen, it seems that it applies in the same way, that we could maybe understand things here and there, or sometimes there are commentaries that will bring down a small piece and explain it to us, but basically we're not understanding it, or we could be even understanding it in the completely opposite way, or even coming to heretical views by studying it because it's so beyond us.
I'm just going to mention one thing, and then I'm not going to say anything more till the end. We were always taught that you had to be a certain age to study the Zohar, and if you did it too early or you weren't qualified, right, you could go Meshuggah. You could actually go Meshuggah, or you could become an atheist. You could lose your emunah. Is that true?
It's true in a certain sense, but I did speak to a Kabbalist because I was curious about this, and he told me when I asked him the question, I was in my mid-30s, and he told me that it's fine. He said if I wanted to go to a rabbi or go to a shir and learn some type of sefer and Kabbalah, it would be fine to do. He said that the ages are not, it doesn't have to be exactly 40. He says the different ages brought down different places. So I'm not sure. There definitely is an idea that somebody older is more fitting and can understand more. But it seems like for some reason nowadays we're much more easygoing with the exact age. Maybe specifically because we're so far from understanding it, we're not going to go crazy. For example, you have to be in a certain level to go crazy from such things. You have to really understand. Like we find by that Tanaim, some of them went crazy. But the way that we understand it, I feel like we can't even understand it to that level to actually go crazy. So again, it seems from nowadays, it seems like definitely the older the better, and definitely somebody who's experienced, a Talmud Chacham who's been studying Talmud for a while, definitely is much more ready for such a thing. But that it seems like for some reason it seems that we're less exacting with a certain age or a certain exact amount of knowledge.
Thank you so much.
So I wanted to go through some of the history of golems, starting from Avram Avinu, the author. But before I start, I wanted to talk about the morale first, because that's I find that that's a very interesting, and the most popular golem was the morale's golem. So the morale was nifter. The morale passed away in 1609. And the stories that we all know is that he created a golem somehow, and this golem the morale used him to basically to save the Jewish people in different ways, and he had numerous times saved the Jewish people through blood libels and different ways. And these stories are known throughout the Jewish world and even in the non-Jewish world. And I also have gone to Prague. I think Rabbi Glassman, you said you were there, right?
Mm-hmm,
You said before, right? So I had also gone there, and I saw also that, as you did, that there's souvenirs of the golem everywhere. They very much take advantage in Prague that everything there is about the golem, whether it's statues or souvenirs or tours. Everything there is about the morale and the golem. And it seems it's a very known idea throughout the world about the morale and the morale's golem. For sure, the most popular golem. And the morale was definitely, of the greatest people that we've had. And he was an extremely prolific author, writing on every topic, the entire Talmud and many other topics, and very deep topics. The Hasidim and as well as the Kabbalists spend a lot of their time on the words of the morale. The problem is that from the morale himself never says a word about golems. He doesn't discuss how to make it, or he never discusses the word. He never discusses it at all. On his grave, if you've been to the cemetery, there's a very long inscription over there about the morale. It doesn't say a word about him making a golem, which is surprising, a little surprising, because you'd think that would be a pretty important detail. Not only that, there's nobody from the 1500s who mentioned anything about the golem, not in Prague or anywhere else. The generation after the morale, his own Talmidim don't say anything about it, and he even had one Talmud of David Gans who wrote a sefer, who wrote about his Rebbe. He wrote a biography about his Rebbe, and there's nothing there about the golem. It gets more and more difficult as you see that throughout the generations after morale, for nobody says a word about it. And even people who talk about golems, and even people who lived in Prague, there was somebody in Prague, Rav Weil, who wrote a history book, and he writes that there was somebody, Rav Eliyahu Baal Shem, who made a golem in the 1500s. He writes there was somebody, Rav Vigdor Kra, from around the 1400s, who created a golem. And this Rav Weil, who lived in Prague, and his father, the Korban Nesanel, the famous Korban Nesanel, lived in Prague. His Rebbe, Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz, lived in Prague, and yet did nothing about the morale. And that's what you find throughout the generations. You find that the Chida, the great Chida, the great Sephardi Rav, wrote a sefer called Shem HaGedolim, which is a biography on all the Gedolim who lived throughout the generations, a short biography. And he talks about some of them, and he says, this one made a golem, and by the morale, he doesn't say anything. So the first time, when do we finally see, where did this start happening? Where do we find this coming up, the morale made a golem? The first time was in the 1830s, 220 years after the morale died. And we find it in a newspaper. That is the earliest source we have. I did a lot of research. There's nothing earlier than that. That's where it talks about the morale making a golem. So the question left is it seems clear that he did not make one, or if he did, there's no reason to believe he did. It's possible that I did. You can't say we know for sure he didn't, but as far as we know, he didn't make anything. How did this happen? How did this happen that such a story spread around the entire world. In 1909, by the 300th anniversary of his death, of the Maral's death, there was a certain person, I don't want to say his name, there was a certain a religious Jew, and he put out a book called Niflaos HaMaral, The Wonders of the Maral. And he writes that I found the manuscript in a certain museum. I think he calls it the Museum of Metz, maybe. I forgot exactly what he calls it. And he says, I found this manuscript in the museum. And this manuscript was written 300 years ago by the son-in-law of the Maral. He was called the Marie Katz, who that we know about him. And he says, this is the book that I'm putting out. It's from his manuscript. And it's all about the Maral making a golem. And all the stories that we know are from that book. And that book did tremendously well. I think it was translated into many, many languages. As far as I remember, they made a lot of plays about this also at the time in the early 1900s. And then from there, it just spread out like crazy. So what is the deal with that manuscript? So first of all, the place where he claimed that he found the manuscript, which was its library, doesn't exist. But furthermore, when you go through the Sefer carefully, you'll see that there's numerous mistakes, both in the people when they lived, different dates, words that he uses that were not created till much later time, that didn't exist in the time of the Maral. And possibly the biggest problem is that this person who put out this book had also put out another book, and that he says the same story. He says that I found this, it was a manuscript, I found it in this library, and the story is called the breastplate, I think the breastplate of the Kohen Gadol. And this story it's a long story, and if you want to see every detail about the story and about anything about the Maral's Golem, you could look in somebody, Professor Schneur Lyman. You can look up, he's given so many shiurim about this. He has many classes, both audio and written classes, and different things that he's written about this topic. So really, he has everything there that if anybody would want to look into it more in detail. But in short, this story, they had realized that the story was an exact plagiarism of a story written by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the author of Sherlock Holmes. And that story is a story of Sherlock Holmes put out about the same year. And what he did is basically he took out the word Sherlock Holmes and he replaced it with Maral. He was for some reason so careless about it that in some point in the story, there's a thief who he needs to see the jewels on the breastplate. He needs to somehow remember how it looks to be able to counterfeit them and to replace it with other same looking jewels. So how does he remember how he needs to look at it and remember exactly how it looks? So how does he do that? So this manuscript that he says that he found says that this story, which happened in the late 1500s, early 1600s, so this thief broke into this museum and he just simply took pictures of the diamonds, and that's how he remembered how they looked. Which was so apparently the author was either too lazy or not bother changing that part of the story when he put it out in 1909, or that that this is supposed to be happening in the 300 years earlier, quite a few years before the invention of the camera. Either way, we know from this, we see from this he put out numerous manuscripts, and we know from all of them that everything was plagiarized, everything was forgery, and therefore his book, which he claims to have found, was worthless. But that's how it spread. And it's disappointing some people to hear that the Maral never made a golem and the whole thing was made up. But I think it's good to talk that out also before we go into some people who actually did make one, to know that we're just trying to figure out the truth here, even if it's upsetting. We're just trying to get just want to go with what actually really happened with reality. Now, just to go back to Avram Avinu. Now, I just want to start off. There's a big difficulty in the parsha of the Yosef and the Shvatim, Yosef and his brothers. There's a very big difficulty over there. That it says Yosef. It says V'yavo dibasem ra elavim. Yosef said lashon hara to his father, to Yaakov, about his brothers. What did he say? What did he say wrong? So Rashi there says that it's from a medrash. Rashi says that he saw the Bnei Leah, the children of Leah. Yosef was from Rachel, and there was also children from Leah. There was some children from Bilhah and Zilpah. Those were the maidservants. And he saw the children of Leah doing 3 different sins, which he told his father. He saw them eating Ivrim and Achai. Ivrim and Achai means a limb from a live animal, which is also one of the 7 Shiva Mitzvah B'nai Noach, the 7 Noachide laws. You're not allowed to rip off a limb from a live animal and eat it. The animal has to be dead, or according to Jewish law, it needs to be shechted first. You need to properly slaughter it. But either way, it can't be alive. He saw them doing that, and he told Yaakov, "I saw the children of Leah eating a limb from a live animal." The other thing is that he told them that they were being not proper. They were disgracing, and they were not being nice to the other Shvatim, the tribes who came from the Bilhah and Zilpah. He told Yaakov that the children of Leah were not talking to them respectfully, and they were calling them slaves because they were from these maidservants, so they called them slaves. And he said the third sin Yosef told Yaakov that he saw is that they were somehow he was suspecting them of having some type of relationships with women. These are the 3 things Rashi says that when the pasuk says that he said lashon hara to his father about his brothers, it was these 3 sins. Now the problem over here is that if we say that Yosef was saying the truth, he really saw them do these 3 sins, how could we possibly understand that the Shvatim did these averos? The Shvatim were the most perfect human beings, who were the greatest people that we could imagine, much greater than anybody who's lived for thousands of years. They completely perfected their character in every way. How do we understand that they couldn't control themselves? They had to eat a limb from a live animal. How do we understand all these things? If Yosef made it up, so then that's also problematic. How can we understand that Yosef Tzaddik, would make up these stories about his brothers? So the truth is that Ramban, the Nachmanides, says on the pasuk, when it says V'yavo dibasem ra lavihem, the words mean that it was correct. It was a real story. It was reality, because the word V'yavo dibasem ra, V'yavo means that he brought, which means he brought a true story to his father. If it was something that he made up, it was the word motzi would be used. Motzi is something that we use like hamotzi lechem and haaretz, that Hashem takes the bread out of the ground. Motzi is the word that you use when there's a set of gossip which is made up. Then the word motzi is used, like in the laws of lashon hara and the laws of saying bad things about somebody. There's something called motzi shemra. Motzi shemra is specifically the category of making things up. It's saying something bad about somebody else, but that you made it up. So the Ramban says that the word of the pasuk would have used the word motzi if Yosef made it up. It's clear from it says vayavo that Yosef was saying the truth. So all we're left with now we know that Yosef was saying the truth. How could the Shvatim, these holy Shvatim who Klal Yisrael is based on, comes from them, would do these 3 sins? Okay, so now we're going to get back to that, and I want to go back to Avram Avinu. Now, Avram Avinu made the Sefer Yetzirah. You would expect that he himself had used it and had created these golems, these Frankensteins. But you don't find anywhere in the Torah, you don't find anywhere in the Bible, you don't find anywhere in the entire Talmud or any medrash that Avram did such a thing. But the commentaries say that if you look carefully at the verses in the Torah, you see that he actually did do such things, and he did it apparently many times. The first time that we're introduced to Avraham by Lech Lecha, that Hashem tells Avraham, leave your land, leave Haran, go to Eretz Yisrael. So the words of the pasuk is that Avraham took everything that he had, and he also took the nefesh asher asu b'Haran. He also took the nefesh, the people that he made in Haran, which Rashi says of there. What does it mean he made them? Rashi gives one explanation, is that he converted them. He was Megayer, he converted men, and Sarah, his wife, converted women, and therefore it calls it that they made them. Because they converted, because they brought them to Judaism, they brought them to Yiddishkeit, it's called that they made them. And that's what the pasuk means, that they made these people, Asher Asu b'Haran, these people that they made, that they converted in Haran, that's who they took with them. But the simple reading, Asher Asu b'Haran, means that they made. And that's what some of the commentaries say, that it means that Avram Avinu used the Sefer Yetzirah, and he actually made a golems. And that's what it means when it says he took with him these people that he made. It means golems. I just want to say an aside that I once had the privilege to be eating with the Rav Shlomo Volba, who was one of the greatest people of the generation. He passed away about 15 years ago, and he said over a story that when he was younger, he went to learn in Yeshivas Mir in Lithuania, and he walked into the Mir, and he saw another student there, and he said to the student, he asked the student how old he was, and the student told him, I don't remember the exact number, I think he maybe said 3 years old. So Rav Volba said to him, what does that mean? So the student told him, I met the Mashkiach, I met Rabbi Yerucham Levavitz 3 years ago, and that's when I was born. When somebody introduced to the Torah for the first time, or for these Talmidim to meet Rabbi Yerucham for the first time, and the way that he expresses the Torah to them, to those people, to comparatively to what they were before, they're a different person. They were reborn. So the Avraham, for sure, by Avraham, when he's Megayer, and when he converts these guys and makes them to Jewish people, that's what it means. That's what Rashi is saying, that he made them. The next story that we have of Avraham Avinu, the most famous story, is when he invited the 3 guests into his house. And over there also, you see in the words, for some reason, when it talks about Avraham making them a meal for these 3 people, it doesn't say that he prepared for them meat, or he cooked for them meat. It says that he was asher asa, ben habakar asher asa, the cattle that he made. Via maher lasas oso, Avram went quickly to make it. When it talks about the meat that he gave the guests, it uses the word of osa, again, that he made it, which, again, some commentaries say, although it literally means that, it means that he prepared the meal. Like in English, we would say he made them some food. But in Lashon HaKodesh, the word does not fit in the most simple way. The word osa seems to be saying that he made something. And some of the commentaries say that he made this cattle, these animals, he made them with the Sefer Yetzirah. And that's why the Torah uses those words. There's an interesting thing from the Malbim from the 1800s. The Malbim says that you see that the verse says that he gave them butter, he gave them milk, and also ben habakar asher asa, and he gave them meat that he made. And the Malbim says that people ask on this story, how would he be able to, why was he feeding them, why was he giving them to eat basar v'chalav? You're not allowed to eat meat and milk together. So why was he feeding his guests? Why was he giving his guests to eat meat and milk? So the Malbim says that because Ben Habakar Sha'asa, because the pasuk says that the meat that he made was not real meat, it was not a real animal, it was an animal that he made through the Sefer Yetzirah, it was artificial. that the Torah is answering in the verse itself, telling you, don't worry, it wasn't a problem with milk and meat, because he gave them meat, he gave them milk, and the meat that he gave was meat that he made. It was artificial created meat, and therefore it's not a problem to eat them together. Within the pasuk itself, it answers that problem. So Abraham passed down the Sefer Yetzirah. He gave it over to his son Yitzchak, who gave it to Yaakov, with the explanations of it. And Yaakov, of course, gave it to his children. But he didn't give it to all of them, because Yosef, at the time that he was sold, remember, he was only 17 years old. And like Rabbi Glassman was pointed out before, that it does, in some way, it does depend on the ages. At 17 was definitely too young. So he did not teach it to Yosef. He also didn't give it to the children of Bilhah and Zilpah, because Yaakov understood that they were not, genealogically, they were not as pure because of their mothers were Bilhah and Zilpah. And he only gave it to the children of Leah. And he only taught these secrets, these mystical secrets, to the children of Leah. So now let's go back to the problems that we had. We said that it's clear from the words of the pasuk, as the Ramban says, that Yosef was telling the truth. So if Yosef was telling the truth, that means that these great shvatim, these perfect people, they were eating limbs from live animals, they were hanging out with women, and they were making fun of their brothers that they were slaves. The Shla says, the Shla from the 1600s was one of their great mystical teachers. And what he says is that he found somewhere that this is the explanation of this story, that Yaakov gave Bnei Leah this sefer, and with this sefer they created a whole bunch of things. They created animals with it, they created people with it. And when they were learning with it, they were learning this sefer. Sometimes the children of Bilhah and Zilpah came over and wanted to learn it also, and they told them, "You can't. You're an eved, meaning your mothers are maidservants. So you're not pure enough. You're not able to study these topics. You can't study these ideas." And that's what Yosef saw, misunderstanding and thinking that they're just not being nice, not being proper to the brothers, but they were telling them that they couldn't study these things with them. With the Ivrim and Achai, it was true. Yosef was saying something true. They took a limb from a live animal, but Yosef didn't realize that it wasn't a real animal. It was not an animal from a mother and father. It was an animal that was created with a Sefer Yetzirah. And taking off a limb from an animal, which is not really an animal, is permitted. This is actually brought down in halacha. This is brought down that's kids, that's something that you'd like to do. That's okay. And then they also created golems who look like women. Would this
have any repercussions for the halachic permissibility of genetically engineered meat?
Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder. I haven't seen these in Chuvas. I haven't seen an Emily Charles farm, but that's I wonder like how these things, if these things could come in practically with any type of any type of these DNA artificial, or clones, or like how it come in practically. I don't know of anything, but it could be there is a lot that there is people that talk about it. I just don't know. I don't know. And Yosef saw that these women next to the Shvatim, and therefore he told his father about it. And he didn't realize that these women were just women, were not real women. They were just golems created from the Sefer Yetzirah. So after the Shvatim, we have, this is actually not well known at all for some reason. The Talmud discusses Amoraim, it discusses the sages in the Talmud who actually made golems also. The word golem, like I said, it's a recent word. The way that it's phrased in the Talmud is bara gavra, created a man. So the story, it says in Sanhedrin on 65b, it says that Rava created a bara gavra, he created a man. He sent a man to Reb Zera. Reb Zera started talking to him, and the golem didn't respond. Rabbi Zevi realized that this is the golem, and he said, min chavraya, I see that you're min chavraya, I see that you're from my friend, I see my friend created you. Hadir lafrach, go back to dust. And he killed him. That's the whole story. And that's the only thing we have in the Talmud about the story, a story of somebody creating a golem. It's just like a very interesting story. I have there's like so many questions in that. It's like a weird thing. The whole thing is strange. Like, what was Rava doing? Why did Rava what was he doing? He's making a golem and sending it to Rabbi Zera. The Gemara doesn't say why did he do that. And why did how did Rabbi Zera realize that he was a golem when he wouldn't talk? So the commentaries say that a golem is not able to talk because speech comes from our neshama, which a golem doesn't have. Like you see that in Bereshit, where it says that Hashem gave a neshama, gave a nefesh to a person. You see, Uncle says nefesh means the ability to talk. So there's the commentators say that a golem can't talk because it doesn't have it doesn't have a soul. But had Rabbi Zera was talking to him, he seems like he clearly thought it was a person. And then when he didn't respond, then he's like, okay, well, I guess he's a golem. So like there's no other possibilities between person and golem. Like maybe he was shy, or maybe he had nothing to say, or maybe he was deaf, or maybe he couldn't talk. There's like a lot of interesting things. And why did he kill him? Like, why did he have to kill him for? So it's too long of a topic. The commentators do discuss most of these things. I'll just say one thing I do want to say quickly, because it's just a very interesting understanding of what happened. Why did Rava do this? Why did he send him to Reb Zera? Just to answer that question. There's a sefer Margal Yosayam, and he writes. Now, there's two different gersas, so two different readings of the Gemara. Some people say that it's Rava, and some say that it's Rabba. So what the Margoli Sayyam explains, it only fits in if you're going to say that it's Rabba. So Margoli Sayyam says that you find another story in Megillah, and Megillah 7b, Zainam Beis, that Reb Zera had a Purim party with Rabba. Rabba invited him over for his Purim Suda. And Rabba got so drunk that he actually killed him. He killed Reb Zera, which you have to understand. That itself is a type of Gemara called Agadita, which is it means that it has mystical, deeper meanings. You have to understand exactly what happened there, when you know what deeper understanding what's going on over there. But either way, the simple meaning is that he got drunk and he killed him. The Gemara says he brought him back to life. Because these people were great enough, they were able to bring people back to life, and then he invited him for the Purim Suda for the next year, and Reb Zera answered him, "There's no way, I'm not coming back, because what you bring me back to life was a nes, and nisim don't happen, miracles don't happen every day. Lo b'kol yom yisrachash nisa." That's what he said to him. Nisim don't happen every day. Miracles don't happen every day. So I'm not coming back. That's the end of the story in Megillah. What happened over here, the Margali Sayyam says, is that Rabbah wanted to show Reb Zera, don't worry, come back to me the next year, come back for the Purim Suda. You see, I have the ability to create a human being, so you don't have to worry about anything. It's not called a miracle. You don't have to worry about a miracle happening. I could just create a human being just like that. That's why he made a golem and he sent it to Reb Zera to show him that idea. You don't have to worry about it. You could come back to me next Purim. If I kill you, it's not a problem. I'll be able to bring you back to life. Okay. We have a story also in the same place in Sanhedrin that it says about two people, Rav Chanina and Rav Oshia, who would learn Sefer Yetzirah. The Gemara says that straight out. They were learning Sefer Yetzirah, and they would create animals with the Sefer Yetzirah, and they would do this on Erev Shabbos. And then the Gemara said that they would eat them. And that also there's a lot to discuss. If to go into the topic, there are commentaries that discuss what's going. Why did they do this, and why did they do it Friday afternoon, and why are they allowed to do it? Because you can't just you're not allowed to just do miracles and get enjoyment out of miracles for no reason. There's a lot of things to discuss there, what happened. But just to move on in history about the next examples that we find. So the Chacham Tzvi says, he discusses a shaila, he discusses a question that if somebody, the Chacham Tzvi lived in the 1600s, and he says, if somebody could make a golem, could that golem join a minyan? Could he count as 10 people for the things that in prayer you need 10 men for, like Kaddish, Kedusha? Could a golem join that? Could he be the 10th man? And then he says, by the way, my grandfather, Rav Eliyahu Baal Shem, from the town Chelm, he actually made a golem. And he doesn't really talk about it except for saying that. His son, Rav Yaakov Emden, the famous Rav Yaakov Emden from the machlokas, the controversy with Rav Yaakov Emden, Rav Yonah Sanai B'Shitz, Rav Yaakov Emden, his son, talks about the story more, and he says that what happened was that my grandfather made this golem, and he saw it kept getting bigger and bigger, and it kept growing, and he was nervous that it would destroy the world. And because of that, when it was getting at a certain point in time, he ripped some type of something off the golem's forehead, some type of I think maybe it said MS, something that he ripped off his forehead, and he killed him like that. And he said right before he died, the golem died, he scratched him, he gave him a scar on his face. That's information that he gives us about this golem. Just as a side point, a lot of people from the time of Chacham Tzvi and onwards discuss if a golem could join a minyan, without going into all the different people who discuss
Mate
it.
Reuven is one of those people.
Who, the Mate Reuven, you said?
That's right.
Yeah. So without going into that, because there's so much to say about that. Chacham Tzvi, who's the first person that I know of who brings down the question, he says that I'm going to bring you a proof that he cannot join a minyan. And my proof is, why would Reb Zera have killed him? If he has the capability of joining a minyan, then you can't just kill him. He's not just something you can just throw in the garbage. He could join a minyan. So that's his proof that a golem could not join a minyan. And the different commentaries have rayas from Shas and from rayas back and forth if they could or they can't. There was somebody, Rav Tzaddik HaKohen from Lublin. He was one of the great Hasidic Rabbanim. He was nifter in the year 1900. He used to have dreams that he would have Torah thoughts in the dreams. He would think in Torah, and then he would write them over, what Torah thoughts he had that night. And he came out with an entire sefer called Divrei Chalomos, all about the different dreams that he had. And that he would write the date, the night that he fell asleep, and what he thought of that night. Now, there were people throughout history who wrote things that they wrote svarim that they were taught by angels, like the Beis Yosef, Rabbi Yosef Karo wrote a sefer called Magen Misharim, which is an entire sefer of things he was taught by a spiritual being. But this is not that. It's not, from everything that I saw at least, it was not that he went in a dream, he was taught things, but that's just the Torah thoughts he had while he was sleeping. So he writes that one night he goes to sleep, and he's thinking about, in his dream, that maybe the Chacham Tzvi's proof that a golem can't join a minyan because otherwise Reb Zera would not have killed him. Maybe it's not a good proof, because what happened with Rav Eliyahu from Chelm? You remember the golem kept getting bigger and bigger, and he was forced to kill him because otherwise he would destroy the world. Maybe Rav Zera killed him because of that reason. Rav Zera saw he was a golem, and therefore he's going to keep growing, and therefore it's pikuach nefesh. He's saving the world. He has to kill him. So it's true he can join him in, but he's also going to destroy the world. So it doesn't matter, he can join him in, you have to kill him. So therefore, the tzaddik was thinking in his dream that it could be that's why. Therefore, there's no proof from there that he can't join a minyan. The next story that we have is Vilna Gaon, who he was nifter in 1797, and we know that he was he's considered as the Rishon. I mean, he's considered somebody from much more previous generations. He was way beyond anybody else from his time or even before his time. That's how we look at him, even according to the Torah law. That's how we look at the Vilna Gaon. And his Talmud, his main Talmud, Rabbi Chaim Volozhin writes about him that he knew even when he was a child, he was just like a crazy genius. Besides every other trait that he had, he knew everything by heart, and he knew even things like Sefer Yetzirah, he knew perfectly. And Rabbi Chaim Volozhin writes, one time I was studying Sefer Yetzirah with the Vilna Gaon, with the Gra, and we were learning something in Sefer Yetzirah, and I said to the Vilna Gaon, says Rabbi Chaim Volozhin, that according to what you're saying now, it should be not such a big deal to make a golem. And the Vilna Gaon says that I'll tell you that one time I was learning this, and I actually started beginning to make a golem. And there was some image. He doesn't explain this more than what I'm saying. He said some image came on top of my head, and I took it as a sign that because I'm too young, I can't finish it, and I can't make it. Rabbi Chaim Volozhin asked him, "How old were you?" And he said that it was before his bar mitzvah. So these are the types of people that we're discussing. This is the last person that I know of was a Vilna Gaon who came close to doing such a thing. So just in conclusion, that we believe in Yerida Sadaros, that the generations go down, and even that we don't find anymore. We haven't found for hundreds of years that people can do such a thing. That we don't find Kabbalists making golems, just like we don't find a lot of things. In earlier times, there were millions of the Jewish people. There were millions of Jewish prophets in the time of the first Beis Hamikdash. And the prophet doesn't just mean like somebody's walking around and Hashem, God comes over to him and says, "Oh, hey, I have a message for you." That's not a prophet. A prophet is somebody who perfects himself to such perfect character that when he's completely holding, that he perfects himself so perfectly, then he's able to hear God in some way. And the Jewish people, we had millions of those people. Then Tanakh could only mention some, the messages that are important for all the generations. That's what Tanakh, that's what the Bible discusses. But that was everywhere. That the people were prophets. And then eventually that disappeared after the Batei HaMikdash were destroyed. We had something called Ruach HaKodesh that was similar to prophecy, a much lower level. And that also kept deteriorating, and that's why these mysticism and all these kinds of things that we don't find these anymore in these generations. But it's just an amazing thing just to realize that like the Gemara says, the Gemara in the Talmud itself, it says if we're like if the previous generations if we're like people, then the previous generations were angels. That's the difference between us and the previous generations. And as the previous generations, if you want to call them people, then we're donkeys. And that was done in the time of the Talmud. So even though we can't do these kinds of things, and nobody in our generation could do these kinds of things, but to realize that how special we were in the previous generations. And the further you go back, the greater the people were. When we learned Talmud, to understand what type of level these people were holding at. When we're learning Tanakh, when we're learning the Bible, to understand, even though it seems on the superficial level, it often seems that they're doing a sin, they're doing something wrong. But we have to spend time looking at the commentaries and see that we know what was really going on. Because our parents, our grandparents, these are people who our ancestors were beyond perfect, and it's something that Mirat Hashem, that something that's good for us to realize, the time of Tisha B'Av, to realize like what we lost, but also to realize that one day when Mashiach comes, we're going to ourselves, reach back to those types of levels.
Amen.
Amen. Sure.
Can I ask a few questions?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Questions, remarks. First of all, Abraham and the meat and the milk problem. And that was before the Torah was given. There was no concept, no commandment of Sar Bali Chaim. Right?
You're asking on what's the problem of Avram and Achai? Is that what you're asking?
No. Why was that a problem? To me, it's a problem. I'm a vegetarian also, by the way. And I like animals. But not to eat milk and meat together comes from the Torah.
Yeah.
As far as I know, Abraham was not at Sinai to receive the Torah.
Yeah.
At that time, he didn't know about that. Also, he didn't daven also, right? I presume. But because those things didn't apply to him, that was before Har Sinai. That's comment number one. Comment number two, which is frequently said that one sign of a golem is it cannot speak. Well, today we can build a robot or a computer that can speak very fluently with voice synthesis, okay, and with some artificial intelligence, can think at a certain level and is still progressing, okay? So then some of these concepts maybe should reevaluate. Unless we say that we're not at the level of the Golem who came before us and we shouldn't question. It's our question. Number three,
unless you say
the tribes.
What? I didn't understand the last one.
Sorry?
Well, I didn't hear the end. Unless you say that what?
Unless maybe we shouldn't question these things. That, the golem cannot think. It's a sign that it's a golem. I cannot speak because we can build computers that speak fairly well with various accents, right? Male voice, female voice, etc. And think at a certain level that's progressing. Technology is advancing. The third thing is the perfection of the tribes. And they could not have been that perfect if they did what they did to Yosef. This whole concept of perfection is a bit problematic, no?
Yeah. Yeah.
The fourth and the last comment, maybe it's too much to remember. Eating limb from a created animal, okay? And Reuven asked a question, what about synthetic meat that's done, created through an industrial process in a laboratory through some genetic engineering, etc., petri dish or whatever. There's a huge difference between that and an animal that has been created in a laboratory, which has feelings. Because presumably, a meat-like thing that's grown in a petri dish, or anything like that, it doesn't have feelings. But an animal, even if it's synthesized, has feelings. So why would we be encouraged not to worry about it and just eat animal?
Yeah. Yeah. I like all the questions. I'll try to answer them to the best of my ability. If I forget something, so tell me.
If I remember, assuming I remember that.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, regarding Avram Avinu, that the Torah wasn't given, that I like that question the most. The Gemara says in Kedushin, it says at the end of the Masechta Kedushin, it says that Avram Avinu kept the entire Torah before it was given. So we know that he did actually keep it. The question is, how is that possible? Why would he do that, and how is that possible? And one of the explanations is because of the Abraham's great mind. Again, beyond anything that we can understand, we're not holding anywhere near that. But because, like, let's say when we put on tefillin, so there are certain things happening in the universe. We're affecting the universe in a great way, and we're causing amazing things to happen to the universe. And Avram was able to see, he was able to figure out what the mitzvahs are going backwards. I mean, he's able to see there must be something that you must be supposed to be putting on a black box on your arm with Kriya Shema inside of it, exactly over here, and there must be that's what God wants. He's able to figure that out on his own. But whatever explanation you want to give, that the Talmud says it straight out that Avram Avinu kept the whole Torah before it was given. In regards to the what Rabbi Klein was saying about how it's used practically, yes, I hear what you're saying. Golems, I'm guessing, also don't have feelings. I'm guessing that. And then I've never seen anybody who says there's a parallel. So I don't know. I don't know if there is any parallel.
Parallel to what? Parallel to what?
I don't know if there is a parallel. I think you're probably right. I don't think there's any. I think you could compare a golem to to a clone, let's say, or whatever. It's probably
it
not.
all depends. It all depends. If the golem has sensations,
Right.
if a golem is anything like has a capability that a simple computer has, okay?
Yeah.
Hopefully it has more capabilities, okay?
Yeah.
Also intellectually, whatever that is, then presumably it has feelings also.
Yeah.
I presume
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't have enough information about that. I don't know exactly what a golem, how it thinks, or anything like that, to know how to compare it to situations nowadays. I'm guessing that it didn't have feelings and emotions, and you can't compare it to you can't compare animal golems to the way they make animals, like what you said, how it seems like it's a different creation. It's something completely different.
You know what it means? It seems like Golem is an inferior being then to a computer-based system that we are creating now, or can create 100 years from now. Because by that time, we'll be able to create feelings and maybe emotion and certainly ability to speak. And certainly have sensors, so it will know if it's hot to put its hand back, right? So in a sense, in the hierarchy of beings, it could be that the golem is at a lower level than a robot.
Yeah. It's hard to, right. Yeah, it's hard to know what.
Larry, I would say it depends on your definition of consciousness.
Okay. All right. So how do we define it?
I don't know. I mean, some computerized sensor that can feel heat or whatever.
No, the sensor you don't need consciousness.
It's
just
conscious.
No, for a sensor, all you need is some resistor or some other stuff, right? Wired into some other stuff, and then finally it turns on the light someplace, okay? In the robot's mind, the computer's mind. Sensors are very simple. So sensory experience is not consciousness. But just sensing. Consciousness basically means being aware, probably being able to think to some extent. It might mean some emotional components, right? What do you think, Ruben?
He doesn't know what to say.
Okay. Now, what about the think about
you asking me what I thought?
No, Ruben.
Oh, Ruben. Okay, wait. Let me mute my mic again.
No, I don't know. I don't. As Rabbi Trenk said, I don't really have what to say.
He's stunned.
No, but in this day and age, when you speak about created beings, maybe we should think about this as well. What about the beings that we can create without the Sefer Yetzirah? And not we humanity, and not this humanity, you and I and us who are listening to this, but 100 or 1,000 years from now, assuming that civilization can persist. Obviously, technology, abilities, science will progress exponentially still at a certain point, right? The question is, what about those kind of golems, like super golems, whatever they would be?
Yeah.
They can create outside of the Sefer Yetzirah through engineering school.
Yeah, I was gonna say about the speaking, about the communicating, the speaking is that the speech of a computer is not. It's not the same thing as the speech of a human being. It's a human being typing in certain coding.
No, let's assume that you give a computer some problem that the computer can solve, okay? Whatever the level of problem that is, let's say mathematics. Then if the program voices the solution, okay, that's not something that somebody enters. It comes out of some limited intelligence at this stage of the game in the computer, right? And then the rest of it is just voice synthesis. Which is like what we do. We move our vocal cords, okay? The computer moves something else to speak.
So yeah, maybe it's like Rabbi Klein is saying, maybe it has to do with consciousness. Like, is a computer like actually thinking and communicating something? I don't, you know what I'm saying?
At some stage, not at this stage. It's a very young discipline.
Right. Right. So, but at least at this stage, I don't know if there's anything that we could say is, has the ability to speak like human beings. It's
Right.
That's what I was saying to answer your
No,
question.
they
At least
can
now,
speak, but I can speak, but not at the level of a human being. Can't speak. Speech
yeah,
is not an issue.
yeah,
Today's
yeah,
speech is trivial for a machine. At one time, it was a major research issue.
yeah,
But to
right, right. So,
speak and to be able to have the driving engine behind it, consciousness, that's a different ballgame.
yeah,
Now, the other question that I ask is ripping of, let's say, the limb of an artificially
yeah,
created being which has sensations also. Okay. Today we can
yeah,
build artificial hearts and things like that with blood vessels and it, use of all the neural networks that are in there, etc. So we build an animal like that, and presumably has sensations. So why would we be allowed to cause it pain?
yeah.
Now,
I don't know.
if you rip off a
Yeah,
leg from a robot, it's a different story because it's obviously not conscious and
right, right,
just stuff, right? But
right.
the bottom line is probably these things have to be probably rethought, even at a low, of course, low level of capability compared to those who came before us.
I don't know. I don't know. I never thought about that. That's a good question. Maybe they didn't. Maybe couldn't feel. Maybe these were like robots. I don't know. I never.
Maybe do. Or could well be. But the question is,
Yeah.
what kind of beings were they? What was his sensory experience? Okay.
Right.
I'd like to finish on one comment. I listened to a tape by Rabbi Ari Khan from Esha Torah 10 years ago. I think it was called Golem, Man-Made Man. And Ari said something very simple, very interesting. Abracadabra, which basically means I create as I speak. Maybe some of these golems were created by speech, okay, or some mental speech inside of the head or something like that. You heard about this? Abracadabra, what it means?
Yeah, yeah, but not like I didn't see it in like any type of like older sefer, but I saw like nowadays I saw in some type of like modern, recent sefer that says that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I thought that was very interesting. Yeah. Also, also some way like the Moshe Rabbeinu and the magicians in Mitzrayim had these magic wands, like they had these staffs. I always thought that was interesting.
Right.
I imagine that's where the magic wands came from.
That's right. What came from the magic wand could have been right. But it's an interesting concept. You create through speech. Many times you do create through speech.
Yeah.
It's like politics, okay, infecting people mentally. Those are not beings, but you create through speech. So maybe somebody really knew this art of creation through the Sefer Yetzirah. Maybe they did use speech to create also.
Yeah, yeah, and that's you see that is whatever it means. That's what God. That's what it says that God created the world through speech.
Yeah. Thank you for your patience for my question.
Can I ask something, Brad?
What?
First of all, I just thank you so much for your most incredible, riveting talk. It was something unbelievable. Really, thank you so much. I cannot believe what a good to have met Reb Shlomo Wolbe.
Oh, you know Rav Wolbe.
Sure, what a squid. He was, I think, in Sweden, and he helped with the visas as well.
Yeah. People don't know that.
Unbelievable, incredible. But can I mention something? You brought in Rav Emden. I had no idea about his grandfather making a golem, but that whole bikuach with Rav Eibishitz over the amulets. And he was a fellow of Shatai Tzvi. Actually, also the Gro, Rav Eibishitz asked the Gro to support him. And there's a letter from the Gro. Just quite amazing that Eden would have taken such a hard hand, knowing that his grandfather created a golem, which is also very mystical and very, it's a whole different dimension into that whole bikuach, which I never knew.
Rabbi Sheller, could you mute it? I can't hear everything.
Okay.
Could you the last few sentences that you said that that
bikuach between Rav Yaakov Emden and Rav Eibishitz, which caused such stories, and it got Rav Eibishitz asked the Gro to support him, and he wrote a letter. It caused a major rift in Jewish history. Really, it was major. It was like a major two Gedolim fighting with each other. Yeah. But what I find incredible from your talk, which I didn't know, is that Rav Yaakov Emden's grandfather made a golem, and that's very mystical. And that he came out so strong against Rav Eibishter for the amulet. It just it adds a different dimension to this whole because between the two of them.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah. I think, I mean, again, Schneur Lyman, the same professor that he took, as much as he talks about the Golem of Prague, he also has equal amount of articles on Rabbi Sinaivich's and Rabbi Emden. I don't know too much about it, but it seems like, it's for sure, it's a very interesting point you're saying. I never thought about it. It seems that Rabbi Emden, though, he was fully into Kabbalah, and he quotes Zohar and he quotes Kabbalah. It was like somehow there were specific things about Shabtai Tzvi that he was nervous about. It wasn't like something like against mysticism, or that he was, it wasn't something to do with him being against mysticism. It was more against him being nervous about people pretending that they were, something that they weren't.
Eibishter was a big rob. He was like Gedolei Adon.
He was just, it looks like he was nervous about the Shabtai Tzvi.
But thank you so much, Rav. Your talk was, wow, it was riveting. There's no words. It was really incredible. Thank you so much.
It helps to have a great audience where you can see that they're listening and they're enjoying it. That helps it helps a lot the speaker. Thank you.
You have tremendous knowledge, by the way. Really. And one thing we didn't respond to about the perfection of the tribes, who actually didn't. Not that perfect with Yosef.
Yeah.
That reminds me a little bit of excuses for King David and Bathsheba.
Yeah.
Explained away.
Right.
Is this explaining away, the deed with Yosef?
Yeah. I understand. It definitely feels that way. The Gemara, the Talmud says in Shabbos, it says that anybody who says that David did an Avera is making a mistake. So even though it seems to us so obvious and clear that he did, but it almost looks like we're trying to just make things up to try to get out of it. But with the Shvatim as well, just like any of the parshas in the Torah, we can't understand without spending a lot of time looking through the Ramban and Rashi and seeing how everybody explains it. Like, we can't understand it just with the superficial wording. It looks like the Shvatim were really horrible people. What they did to their brother
at one particular time, okay? In that particular episode.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a full answer. I know that there was always a division in Klal Yisrael. There was a division between Malchus Yehuda and Malchus David, and there was always there was always a split with Yosef and Yehuda throughout the generations. Like, for example, the 10 tribes, the lost 10 tribes, were I guess to say that the tribe of Yosef was the leader of those 10 tribes, and they were separated throughout history. There was always problems and separations and arguments between Yehuda, who was the real king, and Yosef, who was not. And even by Mashiach, there's a Mashiach ben Yosef that comes first, and then Mashiach ben David is from Yehuda. So when the Shvatim saw that Yosef started saying, "I had dreams that I'm the Melech," in different ways, and he kept saying that over again and again, then they started getting nervous that the Yosef is trying to take over the Malchus and trying to be the leader of the Shvatim when he's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be Yehuda. And as they were right, this kept happening throughout history. How Yosef, the generations of Yosef's children, there's always problems between the two, and they understood that this is called Merida b'Malchus. Mord b'Malchus is Chayiv Misa, that you can't go against Malchus. So even without us understanding that fully, but to just see a little bit of what they talk about what's going on over here, there's like so many things. Even though on the superficial level, the Torah, the Torah says certain things. It could even make you could come out with understanding that Esav is the good brother and Yaakov is the evil, liar. It's very hard to understand. Just by looking at the psukim themselves, you could come out with very misunderstood ideas. The Torah was given specifically to come with the oral Torah and all the commentaries to explain, what's really happening. So it does sound like apologetics, but when you look at the way that they explained what was happening, then it was very deep, important things.
Good explanation. You're right. When they had the 10 tribes and when they had the Beis HaMikdash, they actually had borders that they prevented Yidden coming to Yerushalayim and then they built their own Beis HaMikdash because it was competition. And they didn't want to see who was the real king. So the 10 tribes prohibited other Yidden from the 10 tribes going to Yerushalayim because then they would see who was the real king. And they had their king. So there were always a big machloket between Yosef and Ben Yehuda.
Yeah.
How many generations downstream did it happen that the tribe of Benjamin, the men were killed?
How many generations what?
How many generations downstream from the Yaakov's children, okay? When did that happen that the men of Benjamin were killed? You're talking war, I think, right?
You're talking about you're talking about Pelegish Begiva of Benjamin?
I think so, yes.
It was a lot. I don't know how many, like many generations.
How far removed from?
Why is that? How come you're asking that?
Because the question is perfection. The tribes were perfect. I guess that whatever that means refers to Yaakov's children, not downstream, right? Or it applies also to further generations. Right.
Definitely, they were holding at levels way above us even then. The further back you go, the greater they were. So even when we're talking about the time of the Beis HaMikdash, the people then were greater than even the greatest people that we have nowadays. And then of course you have to understand, like you were saying, you would have to understand that what does that mean? They bow down to idols or all this. You have to work out each time. You have to work out what's going on. Right. But they weren't like the Shvatim at all. But they were still, like we were saying, there was prophets everywhere. There was miracles all the time. It was a very different. The people were very different then.
I learned a lot from you, and all of us did.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me. It was a big honor.
That I disagree with. The honor is ours. But you let us listen to you. Okay.
Now, if you in closing.
Right. Hi. So usually with our programs, Dr. Les Glassman makes the concluding remarks. So I pass the mic, so to speak, over to Les.
Okay. So I just want to thank you all for attending. And Rav, I must tell you, it was not only informative, it was really exceptionally interesting, and the way you presented and your knowledge and your insight into Jewish history, into Torah, it's phenomenal, really. And I'm still in awe that you sat with Rav Shlomo Walby. That you met him. Wow, that is something. What a script. But really, I want to thank you very, very much. It was, I learned a lot. I think we all learned a lot. And we would love to have you back again because you're very gifted and very articulate. But your message and the way you deliver your shir it's unbelievable. And we are so grateful, exceptionally grateful for having you. And Lowell and Larry, thank you for organizing this. And thank you all for attending. And we should just have B'sorot Tovot in these difficult times. And only good news. You should just only know good news and all be well and safe. And B'ezrat Hashem, to see Beis HaMikdash rebuilt in our times, speedily in our times. And really, just thank you very much, Rav.
Thank you very much.
A tremendous example for us to emulate, really.
We have to thank somebody else also, who was without us thanking him, Rabbi Reuven Chaim Klein. Actually, he's the one to thank because he's the one who introduced us.
Yes, thank you.
Reuven and Rav Klein, thank you very much. You introduced us to somebody exceptionally special, and we are extremely grateful.
Well, Larry asked me, someone to speak about the Golem. Of course, I thought about Rabbi Trenk, you know?
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you very, very much.
Okay, I see somebody just came now, so I'll just start again from the beginning.
Well, we're going to have it on video, and a lot of people will be able to watch all over the world.
Okay, good.
Let's start now. Okay, go ahead. No, you don't start. Wait for
start with the part that you say you didn't have a chance to prepare.
No, Lowell Gallen first introduce you. Okay, that's how it starts.
Very Spitz is well, after the recording is off, I'll tell you about him. Maybe you'll want him to speak next. You're not going to want me anymore.
No, unfortunately, we won't. Unfortunately, we'll be very disappointed if you don't come back.
And that's because you never Spitz.
Right?
That's because you never met Rabbi Spitz.
No. I think that you have a lot to teach us, really.
Thank you.
In fact, can I invite you right now for another talk?
Oh yeah, thank you. We need a
topic is. The topic is, let's say, 10 generally interesting stories in the Talmud, like the mouse and the cheese problem.
Oh wow,
something like
that. I don't want to be put into cherem in Israel. They're gonna put me, they're gonna put me in a over here.
Why would
it's a scary thing. Why? A lot of people get into trouble talking about these things.
Well, that's no problem. So when are we scheduling it? Is August 31st okay?
That'll be my problem when I can't leave the house because of Corona.
You're right. I sympathize. That's why we're going to do it through Zoom. No problem. We solved the problem. But you're 100%. My sympathies, we all have the problem. So we solved it right away. August 31st, 8:30 on Zoom. Do you think that you could talk about that?
Let me think about it. And I wanted to recommend my sister, Rabbi Blumberg. She's a very famous author. If you take women, I don't know if you take women or women Golem.
We take women first. In English we said ladies and gentlemen. Of course, women first. Could your sister speak about Kafka, by the way?
About who?
Franz Kafka, also from Prague.
No.
I should speak about her. My sister can speak about anything. She speaks better than me. She's she knows more than me, and she's knows how to write.
What do you think we should invite your sister to speak about?
And we can speak direct. Elisha, can I ask, what have you written?
Sorry?
Or authored? Well, what books have you written or authored?
Oh, I've written various articles for different Jewish publications, for magazines and newspapers.
Wow, okay.
Not
like Jewish history?
No, mostly like personal essays or nothing, just nonfiction type of feature articles.
Wonderful.
Very
your brother will send us your email address, okay?
What?
You can. Why don't you send us your email address, okay? And then we'll communicate about that.
Ooh.
Well, that doesn't mean that you're off the hook. What about the 10 interesting stories from the town?
Oh, that was my point. Yeah, she knows a lot about mice, and
she knows
how they
really?
create.
Once I bought a mouse for my wife, about parakeets and lovebirds and finches. That's good stuff. Maybe she could talk about mice as well. Interesting topic. Now I'm using a mouse. I have a mouse in my hand right now. I don't know if you can see it. The real mouse.
Yeah.
See the mouse?
Ah.
Well, that reminds me of the 90s.
All right. Why don't you think about that, Ofer, okay?
Any topic that you're keen to speak about?
Yeah. Specifically, what I suggested, Les.
Yeah,
that's important. People could learn a lot from. People could learn a lot from it. That's why.
A lot of people got into trouble for those topics, right?
What is it? I'm sorry.
You know that a lot of people got into a lot of trouble for those topics?
In the old age, in the Middle Ages, yes. The Talmud was burnt in France. You're not going to do this in Paris,
In my Middle Age also, I saw people get into trouble
I listened to the hearings in the Senate and I think in Alabama when civil rights activist John Lewis, who was a congressman or senator, just passed away. And his term was good trouble, when they were marching to liberate the blacks in the South, which is a noble endeavor. And such a thing as good trouble. So let's have some good trouble.
Yeah. Okay, so let me think about it. I'll discuss it with my Rabbi Spitz.
Maybe you can do it together with Reuven. Take turns.
Larry, why don't you invite Rabbi Spitz to give a lecture about genetically modified meat?
That's a good idea.
Grasshoppers.
No. Well, the grasshoppers became wheat or meat.
Meat.
Oh, not wheat.
Rabbi Spitz is publishing a book on food and halacha very soon.
Really? Who is?
Rabbi Spitz, the guy, the one who recently joined our session.
Oh, that's a good idea. Okay. Can we include that my harebrained ideas about enhanced anatomy?
Harebrained ideas?
Yeah. That's my specialty.
Harebrained?
Harebrained, yeah. It's weird ideas about, I posed a challenge. There's grand challenges like autonomous cars, for example, or getting a rocket to the moon, or something up to the moon that Israel participated in. So I proposed one which I called enhanced anatomy. And there the idea is that we modify a species genetically and implant organs which they don't have, which are inheritable. For example, let's say gills in a mouse, okay? So that mouse could breathe under the water. Or to modify the anatomy, there are two hearts, because the heart is not a fail-safe mechanism. The heart goes and everything goes. But the two hearts, hopefully, is better, right? And then there are all kinds of halakhic questions that come up about that. Maybe Rabbi Spitz could help me with that topic.
I don't know. It's not my exact cup of tea. I think we had a correspondence about it a year or so ago. No, maybe.
Oh, you corresponded with you? Oh, really? Then you helped me out.
I believe so. I hope I helped you out. I don't know if we came with any real conclusions, though.
Well, it helped polish the paper that I sent to Poland to a conference on bioethics. So somebody came on it.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Glad I was able to help.
So you're writing a book about bioengineering and genetic engineering?
No. It's not about bioengineering. It's different halachic and yanim that are relevant to food that we eat that we don't even realize things about it. I mean, it's I'm writing. It's already been written. Please plug that back in. It's already been written. I don't know what's going on exactly with the publishing of it, but it's supposed to have been out already more than a year ago. But I don't know.
Maybe let's do this. I'll ask for your email address, okay, from somebody, and then we'll communicate about that. All right?
Okay, sure.
Thank you for your help years ago.
Pleasure. I have to run. My wife is supposed to be running another Zoom class.
All right.
I got an email back from Rabbi Klein about this. I thought it was and just starting. I didn't realize it was over. And, I mistimed it all.
But you know what? We're going to have it on YouTube, and you'll be able to watch it. It's,
I'm looking forward. Maybe Rabbi Trenk.
Another thing on YouTube that he's busy with.
Sorry?
Let's hope the computer doesn't block it. Hope it's not too controversial.
No, not at all. Not at all. Oh, it was amazing.
Mayor, stop banging that.
And Rabbi Trenk will correspond about the good trouble, okay? We're getting into good trouble. With the Keren, All right?
Yeah. Well, you're not going to be the Arilan with people throwing rocks at you, but you know what I mean?
It's a good trouble or it's bad trouble?
I mean, I don't know. Do you live in Eretz Yisrael?
I live in Yerushalayim, but some people say it's not Eretz Yisrael. It doesn't belong to us. So I live in Yerushalayim. I think it belongs to us.
So maybe let me think about it. You mean to say like all these topics about that are contradictory to science? Is that what you mean?
Say this again. Sorry.
You mean to say to talk about all the topics in the
No,
Talmud?
no, not at all.
No,
No, nothing to do with science.
not contradict you.
Oh,
No, not
that's
at
not
all.
you meant-
No, for
you
example,
said-
the mouse and the cheese problem has nothing to do with science. It's just interesting.
Oh, I
problems
thought you
that-
meant the mice. I thought you meant the mice, which were about growing mice growing from the mud. You didn't mean that.
Who? Sorry.
There's a discussion. The Talmud talks about mice that grow from the mud, and that they're half mud and half mice.
Oh, that's an interesting topic. I don't know. That's interesting. That's interesting. No, but why the mouse and the cheese or things like that? Because you can learn something about how Jews think. You know, that especially very topical now. That the problem there is anarchy, right? The hole in the wall. In America right now, there's tremendous anarchy.
Yeah.
It's a big anarchy is a big, also in Israel is starting to be, right? To see what's happening.
Right.
It's something that really a deep thought that is in the Talmud. That the anarchy is the problem. All right.
So what?
It means
I don't know.
problem.
I don't know what this word. I don't know what that phrase means. Mice, mouse, and the cheese. What does that mean?
Oh, the mouse and the cheese. You know, but there's a mouse in one room and the cheese in another room and the hole in the wall. And one day the mouse goes through the wall, but one day the cheese disappears because the mouse goes and gobbles it up.
Yeah.
That is nature. Now, I think the Talmud asks, you know, who is at fault? I think the Talmud says the hole. The hole is the problem.
Rob, not controversial topics. Just like
controversy. Nothing is wrong with controversy either. But that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for something which is really interesting. Even people are not religious. They're just interesting and powerful ideas that you can learn from. You know.
So, who do I talk to by email if I would want to hear an example? Okay. So then So then I'll talk to you about it more. I thought the whole time you meant like these topics about the science topics.
No, those are remarks about the Golem because you know, if you know what's happening in technology today, you know, you can imagine the Golem world, you start thinking what's going on. But I read a story by, I don't know if you read this, Stanislav Lem, a great Polish science fiction type writer, short stories, Siberia. And one of the stories was about two constructors, Pearl and Klapaukus. And they were robots, and they used to go around in the universe constructing all kinds of projects. And one of them was, I think about the king who tortured his subjects. He used to enjoy ripping their hands off and their feet. They like the pop that it makes, you know. He enjoyed that. And the poor people turned to these constructors and maybe you can help us. So they created for the king a micro world that was almost real. And they gave it to the king. And then he continued doing what he was doing before. And one of them did it, I think, Trö. And he showed off to his friend Kalpaukus, look what I did, I saved these people, and the king is just pumping off the hands and the necks and everything else from these artificial beings, these golems. And then his friend said, what are you doing? These people have real feelings. They really did. He created such a perfect world that they really felt when their arm was pulled off, okay? So these are natural things to think about in our age.
Yeah.
The golem comes up, what is feeling, what is consciousness, what is a limb? Is a robot's leg a limb or not? But it's just some hardware. Yeah? And that's right. No. My intent about the Talmud was not there. Just interesting problems.
Yeah. I got it now. Yeah.
And I don't care if it's controversial. What's the problem with that? Many good problems are controversial. Not everybody agrees. Anyhow, thank you very much again. We will correspond.
And I just, in closing, Rob, can I just ask you a question? You know, you made such an incredible statement that possibly the whole story with the Maral and the Golem is fiction. So then why is it still perpetrated in Jewish schools? I was at a yeshiva college, and I think all of us think that the Maral actually did create the Golem. So how come it hasn't, that notion hasn't been rectified? You know, if it's not true, why are we still perpetrating that untruth? Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, the people that I spoke to, the Talmidei Chacham that I spoke to, the Rabbanim that I spoke to, all of them seem to know that. All of them seem to or I should say, almost all of them thought that they knew that already, that it's not true. I don't know. The schools that I went to, they did not teach it. I mean, I just knew about it because I hear about it. You know, I see books about it and I see it all over the culture. But my yeshivas didn't, so I'm not clear like who is continuing it, who is continuing with that. That is strange. That is strange that they would, I think it's pretty clear to everybody now.
Yeah.
That
After tonight,
people-
after your brilliant talk tonight, it will be very clear. And
yeah, we have to spread it.
But I mean, do people go up to the attic of the Altman Shul in Prague?
Yeah, they do. I asked I asked a tour guide in Prague, a non-Jewish tour guide, and he said that people go up there to clean.
Really?
And I also saw on the internet, I can't remember now where, there's some guy who like he's very into like researching different things, and he got into the attic and he took pictures of the attic just to show that it's empty.
well, can I mention something? When I went with my daughter a couple of years ago, we had a Frum tour guide, an Israeli. He lives in, and he was referred to as somebody from Hanoch, so from a Frum person as well. So he showed us the attic, and he said that's where the Golem was created.
Right.
And this he was from. I mean, he's
Right.
So
You're saying
I
he
always
was
knew that maybe it wasn't true, maybe it was true.
Right.
But
yeah, I do. I mean, I still do find many from people do actually, still fully believe it. It could be maybe even in these yeshivas, maybe the heads of the school really, they don't know it. They never found out about any of these things. So they just assume it's true because that's what they were brought up with. I do find much of the world still believes it, Again, the Schneider Lyman has many articles on the web and Shirim about all about everything there is to know about the morale and this author.
well, once again, thank you so much. And,
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rav Klein, and thank you, Lowell and Larry, and
Thank you, Rabbi Klein.
And to Ruben Chaim.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right. Labriot to Kulam.
Okay.
Stay healthy.
Hatzlacha.
We'll send you the link to the talk, okay? Once it's on YouTube, we'll send you the link.